Hello and welcome to another episode of How Are You Holding Up? A mental health podcast by the depressed for the depressed. I'm Lindsey.
And I'm Chris.
And the first question I want to ask is, Chris, how are you holding up?
It's been a wild couple weeks.
Yeah, so we did not do a podcast last week. It was Labor Day, so if you guys did not get the memo, we're sorry. Thank you for tuning in this week.
Yes, and as always, we try to let people know mostly through the Instagram. That's usually where most of our kind of news and updates and things that we announce, that we do it usually through the Instagram. We should probably spread that out a little bit. We'll be trying to figure that out. But I am currently on day 1 after seeing my new psychiatrist and being on my new medication, which we will get into momentarily. But Lindsey,
yes, how
are you holding up?
I'm completely exhausted emotionally, and I just want to cry.
Yeah.
And today was not a bad day. Today was the day that I signed a lease on a beautiful place out in the woods with my partner. And it went very well and went smoothly. And I have support from some really lovely people. And but there's so much happening. I've got so many things going on. I work 3 different jobs.
Yeah.
I'm a freelancer, so it's like all over the place, trying to make social things happening. I'm going to Wasteland Weekend, which is an apocalyptic festival at the end of this month, moving in on October 1st, because this house kind of just came up.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, perfect. And I was like, wait, everything's happening so fast.
So wait, you're going to Wasteland Weekend the end of the month, and then immediately after that?
Yes.
Wow.
So that week, the next weekend I come back, we'll probably move in. So it's just completely immobilizing for me. I'm numb, and there's moments I get flashes of like, yay, and then I get moments of flashes of like, I need more help.
Yeah.
And I just wish that I could go to my therapist because I can't afford it. And have I reached out to her and been like, hey, I don't have insurance, would you please figure out a deal with me? Would that be cool? Are you open to it? No, I have not done that, but I miss therapy. And I'm just kind of emotionally sad and drained right now, even though there are great things happening.
And that is something to kind of recognize, that in the ups and downs, the lefts and rights, the forwards and backwards of life, that even when things are going really well, it doesn't necessarily mean that emotionally and mentally
you're okay.
You're okay.
Yeah.
Which brings us to today's topic of changes.
Change it.
Face the strain. Yeah. David Bowie, we are not, but that's okay. So, starting off kind of on the follow-up note.
Yeah, your big change.
Yeah, my big change.
You going through a really rough patch, which you guys can, if you're interested in hearing the ups and downs, it's in our past episodes. We've been very candid about.
Literally the last 6 months of my life have been a relative downward spiral. I have never felt, well, I don't even know if that's true anymore. I was going to say I haven't felt quite as low as, but maybe I have. I can't really be positive.
Well, you were really low.
I was very low.
We were getting actual concerned messages from some of our listeners, which thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And you took it upon yourself to make a change.
I have made several changes in this last couple months. It started small, changing little things here and there, spending habits, and how I was able to, kind of manage my life. I was trying to be a little more organized. And then finally, I took it upon myself to seek out medicinal help. I'm actually finding a psychiatrist who would work with me and try and help me figure out what I could do.
I do think it's great, though, that you started at, building your house brick by brick emotionally, with starting with small things that you could control, just like your spending habits, and then you also got yourself a really good mattress, because sleep is so important, and you recognized your sleep was not great.
I recognized that my mattress was slanted and horrible, and I hated it. And I got up bright and early, and I went and I bought a mattress, and I
also-
forced myself to do it.
You've also been food prepping.
I've been food prepping. I've been socializing differently, because it's been something that I've required. I can't do without socialization. I drive myself crazy when I'm by myself. So, yesterday was the first appointment with the new psychiatrist, and I'd like to go over with the listeners, if you are looking to getting a psychiatrist as well as a therapist, because they can do both. A psychiatrist can be your therapist, but I happen to have separate. Now, the psychiatrist that I found, he's very good in terms of how I've experienced doctors in the past. He was very open to communicating. He was very inquisitive. He was listening to me, which was the big one. But let me go over step by step kind of what to expect on this first visit. So, first thing that you're going to get is a big-ass pile of paperwork. You are going to get a pile of paperwork, usually either emailed to you weeks in advance or something, whenever it is you made the appointment. And it usually has a lot of, standard paperwork stuff. Name and address, family, emergency contacts, HIPAA requirements, which are essential for your privacy. It basically assures that your psychiatrist cannot talk to anyone about you without your permission. And you can list various people if you want to have them capable of communicating with your psychiatrist. So I gave my general practitioner as well as my therapist HIPAA rights, basically. So if they need to communicate, they can. First day that I'm there, I go over the paperwork with the nurse practitioner, and she also gives me a kind of minor physical. Height, weight, blood pressure, pulse, the standard kind of measurements that you would get visiting any doctor. And this is good to just kind of collect how your standpoint is at the beginning of this medicinal journey, so to speak. Then you go into the actual session, and your first session with a psychiatrist will usually last between 45 minutes to 2 hours, depending on circumstances. My first session was 45 minutes, and we went over my medical history, went over my family history, and then went over why I was there, which was me in my own words describing, hey, this is how I've been feeling, this is how long I've been tracking it, this is how long I've noticed it, this was when I first noticed symptoms, here's, all the various little ins and outs of who I am and why I feel the way I do. And for things that I would mention, he would have follow-up questions. I would be able to elaborate if I could, or kind of have him help me if I couldn't quite enunciate exactly how I felt in a given situation. We talked about the things that I had discussed with my therapist, which I thought was interesting, that he said, kind of was judging or analyzing my therapy and how that was progressing.
What were some of his questions on that?
He mostly was asking, various techniques that had been done. Had I done any CBT? Had I done anything, blah, blah, blah. And ultimately asked, do you like your therapist? Is he helping you? And I had to have a moment where I was actually like, well, I think so. But I haven't necessarily felt the changes come from him. They've been more my doing, but I can't necessarily say that I haven't gotten inspiration from him. It was weird. It was kind of a hard question to answer because you don't necessarily... It's one of those things like lighting in movies. Yeah. If you notice it, it's probably bad.
Yeah.
So then after we'd gone over all of these, minutia, we got down to the brass tacks of medication options. And he laid out all of my options for me. He said, now you'd been on Lexapro before, it didn't work, It's what's known as an SSRI. Serotonin, blah, 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 blah.
Receptor.
Not a doctor. I am not a doctor. I can't remember this stuff. Then he gave me the option of an SNRI, which is also, it's not just serotonin, it's one of the other brain chemicals that is affected by that, which I could look up because I feel like that one is actually kind of important. SNRI. Serotonin oh man, I can't pronounce that.
Norepinephrine?
Serotonin norepinephrine.
Reuptake inhibitor.
Yes. So SSRI, SNRI, and then the last option that he gave me was Wellbutrin. And Wellbutrin, unlike SSRIs, SNRIs, was more of a quasi-stimulant. It is more known for things like, well, SSRIs and SNRIs are kind of, the side effects with them are anywhere from weight gain to loss of sexual function to, it's a whole bunch of stuff. With Wellbutrin, you typically notice weight loss, more energy, things like that, because it is exactly that. It's a quasi sort of stimulant. It's usually used, honestly, to treat smoking addiction.
Yeah, so it helps to help you quit.
And seasonal affective disorder as a sort of temporary stopgate. He gave me all three options. I said, well, ultimately, I didn't like how my brain reacted to the Lexapro, how it made me feeling numb, and the weight gain I noticed.
I had weight gain on Lexapro as well.
Exactly. So I said, let's try the Wellbutrin. Also, part of that decision was the fact that my mom is on Wellbutrin.
And how has she been affected? Positively?
That she is loved every moment of being on it.
Wow.
Which has been something that I let him know. I was like, this is the one thing I know. My mom usually suffers more from kind of an anxiety standpoint. She's had depression almost all her life, but like the anxiety was a thing that I always knew from her.
Yeah.
And he said that's likely to happen. If you are an anxious person, Wellbutrin can heighten that. So if you suffer more from anxiety than depression, he would not recommend that. But I, on the other hand, suffer far more from my depression than any form of anxiety. So that is the drug for me. Today is day one. I feel, again, most medications, when you take them for the first time, you aren't going to get the true effects of them for a few weeks.
And sometimes a few months for the full
yes
effect.
Yeah.
But you'll notice definitely after a couple weeks, for sure.
Yes, exactly. So I feel a lot more energy, but there's also part of me that is uncertain whether this is the effect of the drug or a false positive from a sort of placebo effect that I have instilled in myself that, hey, I'm taking the happy pill. I'm taking the thing that's going to give me energy. Therefore, my body is going to be energetic and feel great and want to be happy. Good job, me.
I'm going to go with you're definitely more energetic.
I'm definitely more energetic.
You really are. You're a bit brighter and you're a bit more focused as well.
Yeah, I think that's... I mean...
When I came in, you were much more focused.
Yes, I would say the focus has been kind of awesome, honestly. I've been honestly really surprised today in particular because I got up.
Started, right?
I started today. I got up by about 4 hours after taking it was when I really noticed the effects taking place, and I was out shopping, and I was dead set, straight focus, the whole spiel.
Maybe it's because it's not an SSRI.
It might be
because SSRIs are known to take a little longer.
Could be. This will
We're
be
not doctors.
Yeah.
So really, it's just kind of us experiencing these things as we go.
So now that I've been on this, and the last part of my therapy session, after being prescribed the Wellbutrin, was letting me know what exactly the treatment plan was. He scheduled follow-ups 2 weeks after, and then another 2 weeks after that, just to make sure, hey, let's make sure that we get you in. Let's take some, make sure some little benchmarks here and there, see how you're doing. If we need to adjust, we can, and we will. So, ultimately, I feel really good about my experience, which was not 100% expecting, but I'm glad that I've done it. And
are you feeling hopeful?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm not feeling hopeful yet, simply because I have gone now 3-4 years without really feeling hope.
Okay.
So I feel like that's going to be a slow burn.
Yeah, that's okay. Excuse my yawn. I'm emotionally exhausted.
You are. So this, to me, this experience, this psychiatry trip that I've gone through, is an example of a good change.
Yeah.
It is scary, sure. Do I feel that this was something that I could have done sooner? Absolutely. Am I regretting not doing it sooner? Not sure yet. But ultimately, it kind of came down to me embracing the fact that I can and do deserve. Well, deserve is a weird term. We'll get into that. I should be happy. I should take steps to improve myself. I should take steps to make things better for me. I should not dwell on the negative. I should not dwell on that which hurts me. And that is the first glimpse of hope that I've had in years now.
Good. Well, I'm glad that you're beginning the journey.
You and me both. We'll see. But,
So I was, looking in the mirror the other day. I was like, oh, God, I need to make some changes. And so I went out and I made an appointment and I joined Blink.
Nice.
So I joined a gym. It's a small gym. And, of course, now I'm moving out of the city, right? But I joined it and I went once and I hated it. I hate gyms. I hate them so much. But I was like, sometimes I'll go to the gym and sometimes I'll go outside and go on a hike. And that's what I did for about a week and a half. And then I got called into an office to do some work for stuff. But, which disrupted my morning hikes.
Oh.
So bougie. So changes. Here we go. There are good changes and there are bad changes.
Yes. There are good and there are bad changes.
And there's all in between. And differentiating the two can sometimes be confusing.
I would say so. The types of change, of course, they're not limited to, just little things. Sometimes they're really big things. But they could be in between things. So, personal relationships, living situations, that's a change that you are currently going through.
I've gone through a lot of that, I feel like, in the past year and a half.
Yeah, you've gone through that, well, over the last several years, I'd say.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving for me.
And every single time it's happened, it's been stressful.
It is.
It's been kind of freaky, but at the same time, has there been excitement?
Yeah, there's always a mix of that. I mean, and one of the things therapists do say is, you've got some big stress coming in with certain things, and moving is one of them. Mm-hmm. So trying to keep that in mind for myself. And I know that I also get really anxious and stressed before I go to events. Yeah. Where I completely change my whole schedule and eating habits, and I'm suddenly thrown into the Mojave Desert. And then I come back and I have a kind of a crash after that.
These are things that kind of coincide with an episode we did a few weeks ago also of getting out of the house.
Yeah.
Where finding those changes, those changes of scenery or those changes of habit, they can be great. They could also be insanely taxing.
I know. I feel like, for me though, what's been really hard are the physical and emotional changes that I've gone through as I've progressed. And also watching other people go through those kind of things where you go on medicine and you gain 25 pounds. Mm-hmm. And then you have to learn what your body even looks like, or the emotional changes that a lot of people go through when they get a new diagnosis, like you have schizophrenia, or you are, major depressive,
bipolar.
Yeah, and maybe you weren't until you were 25, or you weren't until you were 19, or 30, or 40. So that's a huge change.
Or worse, if you're 10, 11, 12. Yeah. If you're a young person listening to this and you've been given your diagnosis, it's already a difficult time in your life. But you're definitely not alone for that, thankfully. There's a lot of us out here.
And I feel like we could do a whole episode on, I feel like there's so much to go into about changes and how to cope with them.
Yeah.
But there's a big question of when there's a good change or a bad change, do you deserve it?
Yes. As I had mentioned earlier, it was funny, we were talking about doing this episode earlier, and this was a moment that you said something that kind of hadn't dawned on me until you said it, which the entire concept of deserving, human construct.
Yeah, it's a human construct. Whatever you deserve, or if I deserve this or they deserve that, or the construct of fairness.
Yes. Oh, God.
Is this fair?
It's not. There's... Oh, man. That in and of itself goes beyond the realm, I feel, of psychology and more into the realm of philosophy.
Right.
Which, there's a lot to be said about the idea of deserving happiness or people getting their just desserts.
Yeah.
You hope that someone would be able to live their life and not fuck with others, but it's not always the case.
So how do you handle change?
Badly.
Yeah. Well, one thing, I remember going to my therapist and I was trying to make all these changes in my life, like how I was trying to get through codependent, like realizing that I was codependent, so changing my thinking patterns and how I talked to myself and how I dealt with other people. And it was so uncomfortable, and I felt like it was so against my nature. And then telling her about it, and she's like, well, yeah, change is super uncomfortable. And I'd always thought that, like, change would just be, like, if it's a good change for you, it'll feel great. Yeah. You'll know it's good by how it feels, man.
Oh, yeah. No, you'll know it's good for you because you feel so good with it.
Right.
There are plenty of things that happen to us. Both of us in our experiences can relate that there are a lot of things that we've been through that felt great at first.
Toxic.
And were incredibly toxic. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily always going to be sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a part 1 of changes episodes.
I feel honestly that way too. But so with good changes, the thing about like that whole concept of we deserve, good things to happen to us, and we deserve to feel good, and we should feel good. That, I mean, don't get us wrong. You absolutely should feel good. Life is not all terrible.
I think what's the most frustrating for those of us who suffer from depression and anxiety is when it feels like you're trying to do everything right, and everything around you seems to be okay, and yet you still cannot connect to it on a level that you would say that I'm happy or hopeful or peaceful, because you have these other issues that you're dealing with, that your body is being a shit to you.
Your body and your mind and everything in between.
Yeah. Well, I meant mind, but
but your body too. Because, like, if you're going through a period where you've got an injury, or you're sick, or you've, as is the case sometimes when we let ourselves go, there is a point in which you feel like, I would like to do something good for me, but I can't, or I shouldn't, because doing something good, quote unquote, for me, I don't deserve that. I deserve bad things to happen to me, or I shouldn't have good things happen to me because I'm such a shit person. And those are the thoughts that kind of echo in our minds in those situations. Just feeling so closed off from that part of us that actually wants us to do good, do well, do anything but hurt ourselves. It's hard. It's hard to fight that.
So if you're going through some changes right now, and you're struggling with it, accepting that everything is constantly in motion forward can be helpful. Just know that it's, it will pass.
It's that Bruce Lee quote, "Be water, my friend."
Be water.
Don't be a tree standing in the midst of a torrential river, because it will break. You need to be water. It can take any form, any shape.
Well, if I'm water, then I'm a swamp water. Murky and poisoned.
Oh, that's okay. I feel like I'm a Jello or something. So yeah,
that's not water, Chris.
It used to be. It has gelatin put in it. But
so you made some good changes today.
I made some good changes, and it's funny. The last time I made good changes for myself, you want to know the main reason why I did it?
To look hot.
Well, partly.
Why?
Spite.
Anger is a great motivator.
Anger as a motivator is bizarre, and I hate it. But it was that thing where I was like, fuck you, I'm better than this. And you know what? That only works for so long. This time, it was more out of a actual feeling of deserving or, wanting to feel good.
And that's important. That's a big difference. It might seem small, but that rescue... It's good. I'm
finally putting those white knight tendencies
towards yourself.
Towards myself, yeah.
I thought I had the other day was I've kind of gotten back into a really negative thought pattern with myself, and I was thinking about just really negative stuff at the moment about other people, and I was like, you really can't be loving and healthy consistently if you're abusing yourself. Mm-hmm. You can't. You can't, and you will become abusive. And it might be a small moment, and you'll apologize for it, or, it might turn something bigger. But if you're being abusive to yourself, especially mentally, it's like you feel like you deserve, like you said, the deserving. Mm-hmm. It's time to make a change.
It's time to change for the better, guys.
Yes.
Whatever it is that's holding you back, whether it is that negative self-talk, or the idea that it's too hard, or that you'll get to it later. Whatever it is that's keeping you from just taking that first step out the door, take the step, man.
Yeah. And if you're not in a moment of change and you're just like, oh, thank God, don't worry, it's coming for you.
Yeah. You're going to find it.
Change is coming.
Change is always coming.
Dun-dun. Dun-dun.
It is a glass shark swimming through the water, trying to get you.
Oh, man.
Well, either way, thank you for tuning in this week. Thank you again for your patience. I know that we've had a couple missed episodes in the last few months, but we're trying our best.
Yeah, life happens.
Yeah.
So, thank you so much for listening in, and
follow us on Instagram at HAYHU Podcast. Like our Facebook page, subscribe to the subreddit, and if you want to support us directly, visit our Patreon. We're going to post a bonus episode this upcoming week, which is going to be a little goofy, but it's going to be fun. It's called Hosts 001. It's literally all of mine and Lindsey's warm-ups for the first 50 episodes. Which, if you're into a couple people sounding like complete and total nutters, that's going to be the episode to check out. If you want to send us an email directly, you can always email us at mailbag@howareyouholdingup.com. And
please, seriously, follow us on the Instagram, because if you are bummed out that you've missed out on an episode, you don't know why, like we didn't post or anything, that's where you're going to hear about it. And we also do fun little stories and stuff.
Yep. So thank you again.
And have a great week, guys. Talk to you soon. And don't forget,
Don't tell us to just get over it.